It's the Friday Feels, and we're back with your first sip of the weekend. You're now tuned in to this week's episode of Your Happy Hour. I'm your host, Nicole Carmine, and it's amazing to have you here, joining me this week as we uncover the truths about being a human and a working professional. What are you up to this Friday? Well, whatever it is, this moment is just for you. Hello everyone out there tuning in this week for another episode of Your Happy Hour within the Friday Feels space. And for those of you who are still catching up, we're in the middle of yet another month, April 2025, and we're tackling the theme of doing business with. What does this mean? Well, we've unpacked some incredible life experiences with founder, executive producer, and community leader Simon Makwela. And we've had some interesting insights into the world of the creative economy, and specifically songwriting with South African dance pop artist Landi Yolandi. And now today we're going to be unpacking this a little bit further from yet another angle. And this is doing business with founders. Now I've got a really cool guest today who I've been so excited to have on. And I'm really, really grateful to have met via Saj, who was our co-host in season 1. And today we are going to be talking about the business of doing business with founders. So a very, very big welcome to you, Donnie Bachan, to the Your Happy Hour podcast and the Friday Feels space.
Thank you, Nicole. It's really a pleasure to be here. Really excited to have our conversation today.
Oh, well, it's great to have you. And I know that you and I have had quite a few conversations around my own business things, but also about what you do in terms of business with founders. So I want to just hear a little bit from you and for our audience out there. What has your journey been? How on earth did you get into the business of doing business with founders, and a little bit of what the topic means for you?
Yeah, it's been a quite interesting journey. I tell everybody I'm just a tech geek. That's how I started my career as an software engineer. And about 10 years ago, my boss was investing in startups, and he would take me along to kind of technically evaluate the startups. And then I started noticing the same problems that all the startup founders were having from a technology perspective. And I did what, is probably an insane person would do. I just quit my job and decided to try and help startups. And it's been an interesting journey for the last, going on 12 years now, with meeting some interesting people. It's a very, very crazy ride, because you see all different types of people, all different types of businesses, and you meet some real characters along the way.
Well, I think that's really brave. Maybe like ignorance is bliss at the time of doing something like that, but that's amazing that you've done that. And I know you also, you're founder of Six Berries and you're doing a ton of things. So how would you explain your role with founders, or how do you work with founders when you first meet them?
Yeah, so, going back to when I kind of first had the idea to do what I was doing, I noticed the same problem with pretty much all the founders that we were talking to at the time. The challenge was that they had an idea and they tried to get an engineer to build it. So instead of them sitting down and really trying to understand what they wanted to do, they just went out and found an agency. And a lot of times what happened was the product that they got at the end wasn't quite right? It's not because the agency was incapable or that they didn't know what they want. It was a communication problem. So they couldn't speak technology, right? So what I did was I quit my job and I started working with non-technical founders to really help them understand, what are you trying to build? Why are you trying to build it? Who are you trying to build it for? And then walk them through that process of designing the solution and then developing the solution. And if you look at most of the successful businesses out there, and some people will disagree with me on this, but all the top billionaires are tech geeks, right? A lot of the tech billionaires are billionaires are tech geeks. And it's because they have the ability to build, right? So they go out and they build the software. And yes, they have been fortunate in other places. But the non-technical founders struggle a lot because they have to depend on somebody else. And that's the problem we wanted to solve. We wanted to kind of level the playing field for them rather than saying, I don't know how to build this, I have to put this in the hands of somebody else. We partner with the founders to really help them have an extended team. So they're not sat with you and they're not on your payroll, but they're your team effectively. So a lot of the work I do, aside from being CEO of Six Berries, which is another business problem, to be also a founder, is I spend a lot of time with the brands and companies and founders themselves to really help them understand what solution they're trying to build for their customers. So it's one of the most fulfilling things, to be honest. Like while it's stressful running a business, I don't think I want to do anything else because I enjoy hearing from the founders. I enjoy looking at their challenges. I enjoy even the stressful points with working with founders. And it's so, it's so interesting. You see so many different things. You meet so many different people. It's a very fulfilling role that I have with people day to day.
For me, it was really intriguing to hear that there's this solution out there because I found myself in the same position, like you say, a non-technical founder wanting to build cool stuff out there in the world and then not really knowing how to do that unless you build a little team of founders who are as passionate as you about this topic of what you are venturing into the world on. But then that brings its own dynamics of you're sharing equity and how do you kind of split things and are you aligned and all of that. And so that's a really tough thing I know a lot of founders are struggling with. And I actually, a good friend of mine, Vincent, who I know you've also chatted to, he found this app where you could find founders. It's almost like a dating app, like for founders, kind of swipe through and be like, hey, does this person fit my profile of what I'm looking for? And is this a good match? So I think it's quite brave and beautiful that you are actually being like a fractional founder to other people and then to so many different extents, because most of us are just trying to do like maybe one business or two or whatever it is, but to be able to be involved in so many different industries with so many different people, I think that's taking doing business with from a very transactional place to quite a relational place, which is really beautiful. So is that how you found it? Is that what the journey's been like for you?
I'm a very passionate person and I get very passionate about businesses that I work with, and sometimes it's a good thing and sometimes it's a bad thing because you are in business, right? So you have to generate revenue and you have to, you can't give away everything for free. But because you're involved with such an early stage, you feel like this is part of you, right? So one of the founders that I work with, and they're one of the best founders, that founding team, I tell him, I was like, this is your baby, but I'm the midwife, right? I feel like the midwife. So I feel like I help bring that baby into the world. So I am so, he can call me at whatever time and I will listen, even if there's no kind of physical, like money changing hands, because I'm always very passionate about the project. It is very challenging to work with some founders. So, just kind of going into that topic of doing business with founders, because I think that to your point around finding a co-founder, I oppose using those apps because I feel like those things a lot of founders or solo founders are put under the pressure to find a co-founder. So you go to investors, they tell you that you need to find a co-founder. You talk to Y Combinator, and their thing is that you have to have a co-founder. And if you're not technical, you have to have a technical co-founder. So you're now forced to go out and find somebody. And the analogy of dating is like, it's literally saying, I'm going to pick my spouse or my partner from a range of people who I don't know. I just need to pick one, right? Like, because I was told that I need to pick one. And the risks of, picking a partner like that is the same risks that you have with in business, right? And in business is even more complicated because you have legal structures and, a lot more challenges in that space. So I kind of oppose people forcing it. I think that in a little bit of a self-serving way, I advise customers to look for fractional roles, look for fractional people, bring them in as you need them, not only in technology, in a lot of different places. But a lot of people, sometimes they don't listen, right? And they have to learn the hard way. So that kind of, involvement, you don't get that from a lot of people, to be honest. I think once you're fractional, there's a little bit of a stigma and in saying that you're just a service provider, right? Like you don't need to tell me about how to do my business. But I take it personally because I always tell people, if the things that we build aren't being used by customers, then everybody's failed, right? So it's not the founder's problem. It's not my problem as a technology leader. It's everybody's failed. So we have to work together to kind of bring this to, forward. So I get very passionate about it, and it's great and fulfilling and thrilling, but the challenges are always there. I don't think I would change. Like my wife always says, you always stressed out about these things. Why don't you just do something else? And I was like, if you've ever met me, you know that I will be stressed out about whatever I do because I get passionate about everything, right? So it is very fulfilling, but it's also challenging to work with founders, and especially when they listen to the people, and nothing's wrong with this because there are a lot of people with experts, but like the Y Combinators of the world, they would tell founders, oh, you need this. This is the formula for you to achieve success. And that's a rule that they followed for their portfolio. That doesn't mean that there are other people who haven't gone down a different route and achieved success. So, I try to coach founders into saying, like, look at all the options and really come up with a solution that works best for you rather than just taking a checklist from somewhere else.
I think that's really good advice because in a way I was thinking you're kind of a bit like a coach, even though you do bring the dev team and you bring you bring all this different experience. And I know also you have an amazing network, so if there is things like funding that's necessary, because sometimes you do need that along the journey. But I think in a way you strike me as of a coach, and I think we're all needing that on the entrepreneurial journey. I can say that for myself. You're needing an ear, and sometimes that is quite hard to find within the group that you would be so closely working with if you are a group of co-founders. I often think of, it's a bit like when you go to your parents, but now you have this kind of trauma bond with them. And so you're not really objective in the way that you speak to one another. So I think it's really an interesting model to tackle business that keeps things quite open. And obviously I can hear that, it can't be easy because like you said, you do take these things personally. It becomes your baby too. And so I'm curious, how have you dealt with that stress? How do you deal with having so much on your plate? Is there something that you like a go-to or like a practice you've developed for yourself?
Yeah. Previously it was eating. I took a lot of stress eating, and I'm being very honest here. It was a lot of stress for everything because you take responsibility for people's solutions. And I think as a service provider, and again, I communicate this to our teams because they don't see it a lot because they're sat somewhere else because we do a lot of offshore work. When you do something, you don't just affect one person. So if for example, we built something and there was a bug, a lot of people think that it's just a bug. One person experiences, we'll fix it, right? But there's so many people in that supply chain that get affected by one mistake that somebody's made, right? And the stress really gets to me. I take it personally a lot of times, and it's probably not healthy, to the point where, again, I would eat, I would just try to get sugar into me. And one day I was just watching TV, and I ate a bag of candy, like an entire bag, while I was watching TV, just subconsciously. And I was like, what's wrong with you? When I looked at it, I was like, I can't believe I've gone through this thing. So I actually found recently I started working with a mindfulness coach, and that's been a lifesaver for me, basically, because, working with him, I was able to really accept what's going on practice meditation, and not kind of like yoga meditation that you see in movies. Really meditation around calming your mind, and focusing. And it doesn't take a lot of time. Like 10 minutes is works miracles, right? Breathing exercises. That has been so helpful for me. And I can't believe that it's taken me so long to kind of develop those things, right? And that has been a massive help. And also, also detaching a little bit from the businesses, because as I said, I'm a very passionate person about whatever I do. So I have to take that step back, right? Like I have to say, look, I'll help you, I'll give you advice. And it's interesting you talk about the coaching. I do try to coach people. People are always surprised when they come to me, and they come to me for a solution. So they come expecting that I will give them a quote, to tell them, hey, this is how much it's going to cost to build this thing. And sometimes I tell them like, oh yeah, you don't need me. You just use this thing. Just go do that, right? Like, because I started this to really support the founders, and it's not altruism because I want to be a billionaire, a gazillionaire at some point. But like, the original goal was to help the founders not make the mistakes and not be taken advantage of. Setting boundaries has been helpful. So the meditation has been helpful. Also setting boundaries, because a lot of people would have my number and they would call me at any hours, at any time of the day. And now I have my phone on Do Not Disturb at a certain time. So past 8 p.m. and before 8 a.m., it's on Do Not Disturb. So unless it's my family members, you can't really message me unless I actively look at the phone. So some of those things have been really helpful for dealing with the stress. So now it's like, okay, it's not your responsibility, Donnie. You have to focus on your business, but also trying to make sure that your mental health is there.
It's such a difficult thing, and I think I'm so glad you're mentioning all these things, and thank you for being so open and honest about that, because I think everyone is, we're all struggling with it in our own way. And I'm always surprised that we don't learn these things from a very young age at school. We learn a lot of very interesting things theoretically, but we don't actually learn about our bodies and how to breathe and how to look after ourselves. And like you said, just mindfulness. And I'm always laughing when people think meditation and it's like yoga pose, because that's what we've been conditioned to think. And most of the time, it's actually just being very present in your body and breathing and being, like you say, very much with yourself. So I think it's really awesome that you've done that, and I'm very happy that to hear that you're looking after yourself, so we can have more founders doing their cool stuff in the world. But it's true, and I think that it's things that we all struggle with, and so being able to take that time, and sugar is really a killer. It's really not the best thing for all of us. I think a lot of people talk about, things that are like alcohol or this or that. But to be honest, I think the hardest thing to come to terms with is that it's the things that we eat every day. And being able to cut down on that is not easy. So
sugar is the worst drug known to man, right? Like it's worse than heroin, because you could, and heroin is pretty bad, but like sugar is really, really bad for you. It's good to have sweets, and like I still love cakes and I still love chocolate and all those kind of things, but like overdose of sugar, it does something to your brain, and it's just not good for you, and it's so hard to break out of it.
It is, and I also feel like it's quite a cultural thing, and I would be completely remiss if I didn't touch on this topic, because you're also Trinidadian, and so I've now met so many wonderful people from there, and I know, being Afrikaans, I grew up in a culture that uses a lot of sugar and a lot of things, and we don't eat the healthiest. But how has that been for you? Like growing up in a place, I don't know what the culture and the food is like, but also I'm sure that cultural experience and now moving to a new place has played an interesting role in your journey.
Yeah. It's interesting. I didn't know I was doing anything wrong, because you're never taught that. I grew up in the Caribbean. I left when I was 22. So I lived a long time there. And I'm of East Indian descent. So my parents cooked Trinidad has a lot of different kind of cultures, so African descent, West Indian, I'm sorry, Trinidad, Indian, Spanish, French, very, very, kind of big melting pot of cultures, Chinese, and our food reflects that. Very rich food. So you grew up eating these things and you didn't know that you were doing anything wrong, right? So a lot of oil, a lot of sugar. And again, I love it still, right? But when I go home now, and I am nowhere near, a gym rat or somebody who's super healthy in any shape or form, right? Like I still love, dirty foods. But you go home and you definitely see. So I get indigestion when I go back, and when my mom cooks, and she's a very good cook, so she always tries to make stuff for me, and I go back and I get indigestion all the time because there's so much oil, so much sugar in everything that we cook, right? And I went out with a friend of mine, and we were at a bar, and I asked for a diet Coke, and they didn't have anything without sugar. It's like there was nothing on the shelf without sugar. And I'm kind of going, how is this possible in this day and age, right? And people in Trinidad, like younger people, are taking their health, a lot better. They get up, they go to the gym at 4 a.m, lots of fit people in Trinidad. The older kind of generation has, a lot of chronic illnesses like diabetes and stuff like that. But younger people are healthy, but you go out to places and there's still no healthy food, right? And I lived in New York for a little while after that. And again, New York is not, again, you have huge portion sizes for everything. And, there's Chinese and there's McDonald's and, you eat a lot of fast food. And it was a big shock when we came to the UK because I think that the UK, while there's takeout, still the same things. I think you eat, first of all, portion sizes are smaller, but you tend to start eating better. And you start walking more, just naturally doing these things. So it was a bit of a culture shock, and we started eating less West Indian type food and more, European type food. And, my wife, her menu has changed. Like she eats, the type of food that she eats is very European in what she would eat day to day, right? Like more Mediterranean actually, rather than European. So now it's been a big shift. And my daughter grew up here. Well, she was born in the Caribbean, but she spent most of her life here. So she's very different in how she eats from what we do. So, I think it's been a positive change for us. It has been a big shock, right? Like you live half your life in one place and you learn these things, and then you come somewhere else to have to learn something else.
It is. And I think it's really interesting how, when you become a founder, for example, depending on where you are in the world, it will also shape who you are, what you do. I think if, for example, for me, like moving to Paris, like you say, like the European style, you walk a lot more. So you take metros, you're not driving, so it's just a completely different way of life. And that plays in how you actually run your business, how you think as a person. And all of these are so interesting. So I'm sure that when you're doing business with founders, you're finding these different things, and you probably have a lot of people with their own little habits and ways of doing things that you're building alongside.
Well, it's really interesting. So we see a lot of founders, while there are always exceptions, I think a lot of founders that we see these days are actually really young. And I'm getting on in age, so I call everybody young. But like we see a lot of people just out of university, or a couple of years out of university, so less than maybe between 23 and 27, that kind of age range. So they haven't gotten a lot of experience in actual working in stuff yet. And then we get a lot of people who are in their 40s, so 40 plus. So either they don't have any experience, or they have a lot of experience in industry. We don't see a lot of people in the middle, to be honest. Now that's changing a little bit, but generally speaking. And it's very interesting looking at the two sides, right? So younger people, and especially today, so maybe 10 years ago it was slightly different, but younger people today are very aware of the things that they don't know, right? So they listen and they look for the advisors and they look for the coaches a lot more. Whereas if you have somebody who's been in the industry 20 years, it's very difficult to try and get them to to look at things in a different way, right? So I have this experience with one company that we were working with, and the co-founder is very successful lady, and they wanted a brand name for their company, and they asked me to do something for them, and I was like, this is costing a lot of money. Are you sure that you're allowed to use this name? And they were like, yeah, it's fine. I was like, I don't think you should. I don't think you should use this because it's the category of the name is actually trademarked by somebody else and a big company. You shouldn't use this. You shouldn't use this name. And they were like, no, fine, it's fine. We just get it. So they spent a lot of money on this thing, and then their lawyers told them, yeah, you can't use this name because this thing. So they ended up spending a bunch of money somewhere else. And again, it's like their experience worked against them there, right? So we have that issue with people who have experience in working. They are very challenging to work with, and younger people tend to be a lot more open to getting ideas, getting feedback, and experimenting. Mm-hmm. Whereas, people who have experience don't experiment. They think, I've done this before. I know exactly how it should be. They never think of the things that they don't know. And that's the biggest killer, right? Like, you have to be aware of the things that you don't know. And people were like, how can I be aware of something I don't know? And my advice is just be aware that there are things that you're not seeing, right? And you can't worry about planning for it because something will change in the future. So what you have to do is worry about what you're doing now, focus on that, and always be mindful that your solution or whatever you're doing is not always going to be 100% exactly, or not even 60% exactly what you kind of envisioned it from the start, and be prepared to change. But people tend not to want to change. So kind of difficulties in working with founders is getting them to understand that things will change and to really think of it from an iterative perspective. And younger people understand that because they live it now, right? Everything is small, everything is cyclical. So that's one of the biggest challenges that I have with, with people, and it's an age demographic thing. Culturally, it's super interesting because we work with a lot of people from the UK, people from the US now, and culturally, we don't see that much of a difference. I think people are fairly similar in mindset when they're trying to build a company. They are the biggest challenge, as you pointed out earlier, is funding. A lot of the times, so they are very stressed about funding and how to get funding. And a lot of people don't understand. I don't know how to kind of express this without making it sound bad, but it's a class differentiation. I think if you come from a group or somebody who not affluent or middle class, and you're trying to get in the startup world, it is very, very challenging because you don't understand the dynamics. And you said something earlier, we're not taught these things, taught a lot of things, and finance is one of the things that you're not taught a lot when you come from a kind of again, you have parents who weren't kind of successful financially, and you have to learn these things. It's very, very difficult. It's a big learning curve, right? So we see founders who underpay themselves. They take on more debt than they should be taking on. They do a lot of things that they shouldn't be doing from a financial perspective. Whereas somebody who's come from, they went to a good school, or they have parents who are a little bit affluent and kind of middle to higher income families, they are a little bit more savvy about these things, and that financial competence is a big differentiator, I think, within the ecosystem. You see that a lot.
That makes sense. And I think it's so interesting because I think we don't often think about the holistic person who becomes the founder, who sets the culture and, makes the decisions. And often because of generational things that you absorb from your environment or from your parents or what happens around you, how you grew up, and what you learned how to handle finances or your health or whatever it might be, you make certain decisions and you don't always realize that. And I think often when you're alone, and I've seen this for myself, is that often when you're alone, you're not questioning yourself unless you're very mindful that you are not necessarily questioning yourself in the right way about the decisions that you're making. And then sometimes those kind of ignorant decisions end up being wonderful decisions down the line, and sometimes they're not. So then you have to kind of just, make your bed and sleep on it. So I think it's really interesting when you are a solo founder in that way. And then when you work with other people, to be able to be open, like you say. And I found that really interesting that you were saying about the gaps between the ages, because I sit in the middle. I'm in my 30s. I guess I'm in this weird bucket of people who are now starting businesses, but I've been through corporate and all of that before. And I can see my kind of like older self always wanting to have the answer, always wanting to know, because that was ingrained in me. You always have to know. And then there's like the younger self of me that's part of like more the millennial vibe that's going, it's okay not to know. Rather ask, and rather be open to changing and being agile in your environment. So this is such an interesting dynamic. And I'm curious for you, Donnie, as you kind of planning or not planning, as you said, sometimes you don't know. You can really only live in the moment. What does a year from now look like for you? What are you busy with that we can celebrate with you?
Well, for me personally, for the business wise, like I said, I'm getting very involved in client work still, and from a corporate perspective, I have to be more of a CEO in the sense that it's around not working in the business, it's working on the business. So looking at how we can grow and scale. And I have never really been motivated by money, to the detriment of my family. They don't like, they go, Donnie, you should just get a job and make more money. Because I think the amount of money I could be making outside of what I do now is significant. But so not being really driven by money is one thing. So I do a lot of stuff because I enjoy doing it, and I try to support people and stuff like that. But, now I have a team, they have needs, we need to grow the business. So my focus really needs to be about supporting my team as well, right? Like how best can I support them? And then also, again, from a passion side, we want to support these smaller founders who may not have funding yet. And we want to take some risks a little bit on those things. So to do that, we need financing, right? So we need to be able to get the bigger projects where we can have cash flow. So my primary focus now is to really scale the business going forward. So in a year's time, I need us to be in a really good position around projects, how many clients we have on board, but also, and I was talking to my team about this recently, it's around taking care of our people. I feel like we haven't done as good a job as we could have done in the past. So making sure that we have a diverse team. We have people in India, we have people in Bosnia, Tunisia, Nigeria, the UK, and we want to grow into the Caribbean, and Latin America in the next 12 months. Making sure that we can effectively keep global culture, our core beliefs and stuff like that going forward, and then expanding that out to the rest of the team. It's important thing for me to do, right? Taking care of our people, because look, I know it's a cliche where people say your people is everything, but like we operate we almost operate like a two-sided marketplace. We have clients on one side and we have staff on the other side, and recruitment is hard. Right, so if you have to go and recruit staff, you have to do the interviews, but a very good indicator of talent is when somebody in your team recommends somebody else, because they tend to recommend people who they know will do well in the company. Because if they recommend somebody who's bad, then they look bad, right? So they only recommend good people, but you want them to recommend people, right? So you want them to say, "Come work with me because this place is great to work." And then on the other side with clients, we want to make sure that clients do the same thing. We want them to recommend us because that's the best kind of sales pipeline. It's not it's not the, you talk to salespeople and they go, that's not how you should base your business. But like, if your clients are recommending you, that's what you want, right? So, you know, making sure that we can keep our staff happy, giving them, rewards and benefits, and building a global culture that really takes that passion that I started the business with and really care about these brands that we work with. That's like really real core part of what I want to do in the next 12 months with the business.
So that very much up our Friday feels alley. And I guess this is also why we connected, because, I think we're all living globally, but wanting to, or rather operating globally, but wanting to live locally and feel that connection, feel that feeling. And like you say, feel valued and being part of a team. So that's really important. And we're excited for you for the next year. That's really awesome. And can't wait to hear more about all the businesses that you're building and being a part of. And I can't wait to have some more conversations with you about Friday Feels when the time's right. So on that note, I did want to do a little quick shout out to our support in this podcast. And we wouldn't be able to capture all this great sound, we wouldn't be able to have these conversations if it wasn't for our audio tech partners, Riverside FM and RSS.com. So if you are a content creator, a podcaster, maybe you want to live stream something, or you just want to capture your meetings, audio, video and words in a very efficient way, check out Riverside FM. They have amazing transcription and other features that they're rolling out all the time. So every day that I'm working with them, I kind of feel like I'm discovering something new, and I'm sure you will too. So if you want to check them out, they've also given us a great discount for our audience, and you can contact us on the socials at fridayfeels.co and we will send you the discount code. And then, Donnie, I wanted to give a quick shout out on this note. We're doing something called the People, Places and Spaces, which are the persons, the platforms, or the creations out there in the world that we feel have the feels and that make us happy. And today's shout out goes to Canva. I know this is a tool, a content creation tool that a lot of us are using out there in the world. And for me personally, as I was traveling back from South Africa to Paris and having to do a lot of event work and creating flyers and all of that, I just really was so grateful for Canva. So thanks, guys, for making it easy, for making it cool, for keeping the trends alive in terms of content creation. And then I would like to move into a little section on that topic of being grateful. There's a section we call the gems. And that is every week that we just take a moment to share what we've learned. Maybe something's been difficult. Maybe it's been a cool experience for you. So I'll start, and you're welcome to share if you want. But this gem for me this week has been kind of wrapping up things in South Africa a little bit and just spending interesting time with family. My poor family were there when I was fixing up my house and packing up boxes. And, it's not every day that you get to share in these comical moments where you're sleeping on a couch in the middle of your living room because everything else is being cleared out. And then being able to do it with parents who get to laugh with you in the moment and help. And so thank you to them for supporting me through this change, and also then being able to come back to Paris and see the blossoms after 5 weeks of being away. It looks really different, and I'm very excited for you, Donnie, to come and experience Paris now in this time of the year. And to hold Gracie again was just an absolute gem, as always. So that was really my gem for the week. What has yours been?
Yeah, it's been an interesting week. I think we've put in some, just going back to that employee kind of rewards and stuff like that. We just implemented something that made me feel really, I had a bit of a cry this morning because one of my staff said thank you this morning to, and that he was really happy to work in the place. And while I don't need, my staff to tell me thank you for anything, right? Like it meant a lot that he saw the value in what we were trying to do. And that was really touching this morning. Again, coming back to that passions thing, I take a lot of pride in everything that we do. And that kind of made me understand that we are doing the right things, right? So we are kind of we're on the right path. So we just need to kind of continue on there and stick with what we're doing, and kind of continuing to be, treat people with respect and that kind of thing. So it was really really good, and I'm really excited to be in Paris tomorrow. So yeah, I can't wait. I love Paris, so it's one of my favorite places. And I just wanted to touch on, you spoke about Riverside and Canva, and Riverside is awesome. I love their magic clips. So like you don't have to edit, it. It automatically finds clips that are pretty cool. That's the first thing. And then on Canva, my marketing manager, he loves it. Like he can just do anything on there. So not to kind of kiss up to them, but they have been very helpful. Both of those platforms have been very helpful for any little things that we've been doing. We haven't been doing a lot of kind of content creation around video and audio, but like we've done a few interviews with some of our customers, and we've done testimonials and that kind of thing. And Riverside really helps us, and then Canva has also been great for really helping us kind of get things out the door. So shout out to them as well. It's really good.
As founders and entrepreneurs and as business people, we're grateful when people make things easy. I think that's the most important part. And for that, I think AI is going to change the game. But not to divert onto that topic for a moment, Donnie, I wanted to ask you one more question, and that is something we've been doing is building our reading list at Friday Feels and your happy hour, and we're calling it the stack. So on our website, people can navigate and see what are the books that have been inspirational to people. So if you have any books that have been lying on your pile that you feel like you keep going back to, or maybe you haven't yet and you'd like to recommend, I want to ask you, what is in your stack?
I mean, I have some books there that I love, but there's actually one that I've been reading recently, and it's called Vivid Vision. I don't know if you can see this, Vivid Vision. It's actually quite a really interesting book. It talks around how do you share your vision. So a lot of businesses aren't able to. So the CEO or the founder has these things in their head, right? And people have to come back to them all the time. So how do you get that vision out into it's not a vision statement. It's not a mission statement. It's a real detailed plan around this is what I'm thinking. This is why I'm thinking it. And that's been amazing to really read and digest. And then there's one other book that I recommend to anybody who works globally. It's called The Culture Map by Erin Meyer. It's so good at understanding cultural differences between people. So the difference between a French person and a German person, between a British and an American, between Japanese and Indian, it has been an eye-opener. And once you start reading the book, you realize that these things actually happen, and it gives you tips on how to work around those things, right? I've given it to a lot of my staff for them to understand, because we have people in India who have to deal with people in the UK. And one of the funniest moments that I've ever seen was I was on a call with a client, and so the client, British client, and they gave feedback on something and give the feedback, and then we left the call, and I spoke to my team. I was like, how do you guys think that went? And everybody in India was like, oh, it's great. They really like what we're doing. And I was like, that's not what they said. They were just being polite. So you didn't get the contextual understanding of what they said. And they were, British people are generally not good at giving feedback. They're not direct, right? So I was sitting there kind of going, yeah, they're not happy. They're not happy about this particular thing. So we need to fix it. And the team was like, oh no, they loved it. They really loved it. And so we that cultural difference about communication and how you go. So that book is one of my top recommendations for anybody.
That's so great. Thank you. Thank you for recommending those. I'm really excited to add the Vivid Vision one to my stack as well, and to go read. And I think that's just so comical. I remember when my corporate job where I used to work, They actually brought Erin in, and she spoke about the culture map, and it was really insightful. And there's a lot of things you can learn about yourself and your own culture from that, which is awesome. So that is really comical. And yes, I can appreciate that British culture being somehow colonialized from an Afrikaans perspective in South Africa through it all. We're very much about the subtleties, So, yeah. Well, that's amazing. And just for everyone out there who's listening, I wonder what you're feeling and what are you thinking about doing business with. Maybe you're a founder, maybe you're on your entrepreneurial journey, or you're just looking for a cool team. And feel free to reach out to Donnie. I'm sure we'll put everything in the socials. And just to make sure everyone knows how to find you, Donnie, what's the best place for them to connect with you?
I'm on LinkedIn. So also we're on Instagram, the Six Berries Instagram as well. And just email. I'm pretty old school. I don't really I have a Twitter account that I never use and Facebook account that I never use. So, maybe Instagram and LinkedIn or email, one of those three. So it's just Donnie@sixberries.com if anybody wants to get in touch.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you to you for coming on today and just sharing so openly. And you really gave us a lot of food for thought in terms of building business and how we relate with one another in that regard. So thank you for being so open, and it's just always a pleasure. And I hope I get to see you in Paris, but if not, we'll definitely catch up soon.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nicole. I really appreciate this. I mean, I've never really done a podcast, like I was telling you at the start. Like, I never really did a podcast before, my first time. And I hope that people find some value in the experience. And as you said, if anybody wants to even get some more advice, feel free to get in touch, and happy to contribute where I can.
If you haven't just yet, follow Friday Feels on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and LinkedIn. You can share with us all your feels this week by tagging us at fridayfeels.co. And you can also find the website at that handle. And now, as you ease into this weekend, take a moment. Celebrate who you've become, what you've overcome, and what is yet to come as you do the crazy and cool things that you do as the authentic you. The truth about life and work is that it's hard, but the beauty is this global working experience that you're in, well, we earn it together. So keep connecting, empowering, and inspiring this week. And of course, keep it raw and real. Until next time.